On to the next guest. So today we've got Faith Liversedge, who is a storyteller and digital marketing specialist. Good morning, Faith.
Morning, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Okay. So for anyone who doesn't know you, you specialize in digital marketing, but you also have a background in financial services and journalism as well. If you could just tell us a little bit more about the story and how you came to launch your marketing consultancy.
Yeah, sure. Well, writing is my first love, which is why I went into journalism after graduating. But I also really love project management and psychology and seeing how that can work together to get people to do things. So rather than entertaining them through just reading something, I like the idea of being able to persuade somebody to do something. So when I moved to Edinburgh in 2003, there's not an awful lot of journalism in Edinburgh anyway. So it was a natural move to go into marketing really, because I had those sort of writing skills already. But I was also really interested in the other sides of things. So, and then if you work in marketing in Edinburgh at any point and you want to sort of get on, you can't really not end up in financial services at some point. But I also really like the idea of getting into the corporate world and getting my hands on some bigger budgets and perhaps maybe some creative projects. It wasn't quite as creative as I thought, but I got there eventually. So I worked for Standard Life, Prudential, Royal London, and then latterly Nucleus, which is where I kind of really got into my stride because the time I joined them, they were at a very, very experimental point when they could be quite wild with their marketing because they weren't quite as profitable and quite as grown up as they are now, although they're still doing great marketing. But I was in there when it was kind of quite fly by the seat of your pants type stuff. And that gave me a lot of freedom and they gave me a lot of confidence to fully indulge my creative streak, but also to combine that with the project management and all that sort of supportive marketing stuff, which I was sort of tasked with, which was supporting the sales team with messages and creating campaigns. And while I was there doing that, I got a lot closer to advisors and got to know about their world and how their worlds were changing through RDR, etc. And found out that what they're doing is really pertinent to people at the moment, but there's this big lack of awareness about what financial advice is. There's still a lot of distrust and people thinking they're shiny people in shiny sales suits and all of that kind of stuff. So I saw a real sort of gap between all of this good stuff that they were doing and all the people that were kind of hiding their light under a bushel, so to speak, in a way, because it's a really hard thing to sell to people and to market, especially when people don't really expect or they're not looking for somebody who helps them with the softer side. So there's a sort of real challenge there in being able to persuade people that that is what an advisor does and to be able to play that out through a number of different marketing tactics, if you like. So that's why when I sort of came to the end of my run at Nucleus, I decided to go it alone and see what I could do to help more smaller companies rather than one big company, because I like learning and doing new things and working with lots of different people and spinning lots of plates. So I wanted to expose myself to that and to see what I could do to help people. And so I set up my consultancy 3 years ago, last month, actually.
Oh, awesome. That's so interesting. That's really interesting. And I think one of the ways to bridge that gap between the kind of old-fashioned way of thinking about financial advice is the essence of good storytelling. So you go on a lot about that a lot in your work. Could you just tell us a little bit more about what that means and what storytelling is?
Yes, sure. It does sound like a fairly nebulous phrase, and people sometimes think I'm going to sit down and read them a book. But it's used in content marketing a lot. But it really is the key to all marketing, but especially in financial advice, particularly because of the reasons I've just mentioned. Because it's the only way to differentiate really what you do. If everyone is selling the same products, then what is it about them that they do that's different? And there's so much that's different about every single advisor. And that's the bit that where the storytelling can help, because it's not something that you can really sell or persuade people of in one sentence or on one web page. It really needs sort of slow development and lots of layering of different messages. And that's where the sort of storytelling phrase comes in, because it's about finding the hook that makes you different and using that hook and riffing on that hook, if you like, in order to portray all the different great things that you do And you can do that across lots of different messages and lots of different channels, but it all comes back to that same hook. So you're not just repeating and you're not just selling this message to people, but you're telling them about it in a much more emotional, engaging way, whether that's through case studies or talking about your own story about how you came into the business. There's different ways that you could dial up and dial down with it, as depending on how blatant you want to be about it, but it all comes back to that main thing that makes you different, and that needs time to kind of develop.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways that you kind of get that story across, and you've focused on in the last few years, is video marketing. Now that's a big buzzword in the NextGen planners community as well, because everyone's trying to get into that as well. But have you got any tips for how financial planners can start to produce video, and how they make compelling content as well, not just stuff that is out there every day?
Yes, so it depends, because there's lots of different aspects of video. There's the kind of corporate flagship video that you could have. There's the case studies where you're interviewing clients and getting them to talk about, and that's super powerful, but also quite difficult to organize. And obviously we can't do that now. But then there's the sort of the easier, lower hanging fruit video, which is where you're doing this piece to camera, and it's, short clips, answering people's questions. So that's where I would suggest that people do start small with that, and start putting that on LinkedIn, YouTube, all of those channels. But what I would suggest is don't press yourself to be perfect. People like the authenticity of it. They like to see the whites of your eyes. That's why it's so good for gaining clients' trust and getting them to appreciate who you are as a knowledgeable, approachable person that's not going to be stuffy or intimidating when they go and see you. So it's really, really valuable to that point. And also it assaults all the senses in one. So unlike a podcast, which is also great, but a video, because it's visual and sound at the same time, it stays in people's minds for longer. So it is a great tactic to use. And also if you put them on YouTube, then YouTube's the second biggest search engine after Google. So you've got a good chance of being found that way, because not many people are really doing it, because it is intimidating. But if you are doing that piece to camera and you start small and you start doing it regularly and you start executing, then you'll get into the rhythm of it really quickly. And at the beginning, no one will really be looking at you anyway, because you won't have a very big audience. So you'll be able to sort of almost practice before you start to attract lots of people. And by the time you get to that point, you'll be a pro at it. So I would say have a plan for 6 or 7 of these tiny, tiny snippets, so that you're chopping up all the different benefits of advice or the benefits of what you do. And also in terms of the content, whether it's video or blog post or whatever, the tip I would always give is keep a record of all the questions that you get asked by your clients, because those are things that people are searching for in Google. Those are things that they want to know. And that should form your editorial plan, if you like. And then if there's the one main topic and one main question that they ask you, then keep that in mind for one sort of overarching theme to keep coming back to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, isn't it? It's all about giving people what they're looking for. And
yes,
it's not any more difficult than that. It is literally just giving people what they're looking for.
That's it. Yeah, it's all there already. You're already doing this. You're probably already doing it when you see people face to face, and all the anecdotes and that's what marketing is. All of that good stuff that you're doing that you may not recognize. Don't hide it away. Keep it, and then spray it out over all of these different channels, and just keep telling, not just to attract new clients, but to keep telling your current clients, because they might forget what it is that you're actually doing for them. And you can use that to develop your bond with them. And then once you've got that bond, you can legitimately ask for referrals or any of those things. So content is king, which is another phrase, but it is.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Yeah. That's brilliant. Absolutely amazing points there. So thanks very much for that. And the question that we always like to ask every single one of our guests is, what are you most looking forward to once lockdown is lifted, which could be quite soon, actually. Or could not be. I don't know.
That gets me really excited. It has been prepped for a while, but this week I'm really, really, really missing in Starbucks, you get these sausage sandwiches with ketchup, and that's just a great start to the day. And I really miss not just the taste of it, but the ritual of it, and the whole the whole getting, you know, I actually drink tea. I don't drink coffee. I'm really uncool. But getting a massive, massive cup of tea with my sausage sandwich. And that's sort of one of my treat things that I'm really missing. So all of the things I'm missing are food-based.
I think that what you've just said there explains the difference between you and me and maybe our class, because you're looking forward to Starbucks and I'm looking forward to a Greg's bacon and sausage roll. So that probably explains a little bit about me and a little bit about you. So just
I am posh.
Yeah. Brilliant. That's been fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Faith. Thanks very much for coming on today, and yeah, we'll see you very soon.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So now it's time to go over to Catherine for Coaching Focus.